Hi, yeah, so I'm here with Evelyn and Mike from Clean Cut Kid. So I guess to start, we'll just go in with assuming the people watching this have never heard of Clean Cut Kid. Who are you? What are you about?
What are we about?
I think that's been a big question
That's the
over the
age-old
last.
question.
Yeah, we're a four-piece band from Liverpool, and it's kind of my baby because for the last three albums I've produced it all. I write most of it, and it is like an an old lo-fi folk band, I guess. It's hard to. It's so hard to put yourself into a.
There's a lot going on in your music, isn't there? It doesn't stick to one genre. It kind of goes about, moves about through a lot of different things.
Yeah, and also like even though the writing's always kind of come from the same place, the like sonics and the way the band was presented from like the first major label, like our first record was on Polydor, compared to now, kind of the last record's exclusively done on like lo-fi quarter of an inch tape, and it's all indie and stuff, and so it's definitely changed, but I'd say the band, the kind of lo-fi old folk band that we are now, is the band that we should have always been.
Is this the same? You had the same lineup the whole time, or has the lineup changed at all?
Oh, we've switched. We had a different bassist for the first
record,
for the first album, and then since album 2, 3, 4, we've had the same bassist. So yeah, we've
it's kind of it's been the real lineup since then, as far as we're concerned.
It's felt more like the band became what it needed to be from like the second album onwards, kind of thing. Yeah.
So how did you all meet? Did you all know each other beforehand, or?
I mean, it was all a lot of different ways, but mainly all kind of focused around this one uni that we all went to. And we were all doing music, but we were all kind of in different. Well, you and Gaz, the bassist, were in the same year, and then I was a couple of years below, and then Ross, our drummer, was a year below me. And even though we kind of knew of each other at the time in uni, it wasn't till years after that we all met together.
Yeah, and we got set up on Ev was touring with a guy that also went to that uni that I wrote songs for, and I was touring with a complete different band on the other side of the country, and we got set up on a date, and then we wound up dating, and then we wound up like putting the project together, and then rest is history. Really, we just recruited the other two idiots, like pulled them along.
Just get to have a fly on the wall insight into our marriage, which I'm sure is.
What's the other two about? You two in charge?
Yeah, no.
I'm in charge.
Yeah, Ev's definitely in charge, and the bassist Gaz is definitely the most together member, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If anything official needs doing, go to Gaz. If anything like mothering needs doing, go to me. Any of the creative stuff, go to Mike. And then I guess Ross is just an insane drummer, so he makes up for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Cool. So where did you get the name Clean Cut Kid from? Where did that come from?
Originally, when the first iteration of Clean Cut Kid, we made a record, like an EP, that was like a lot more acoustic, and we were looking for a name for it, and then I kind of made the first track, Vitamin C, which was this big wild like vision I had of like, we're gonna pair like this super emotional, heartfelt writing with these like walls of like really experimental guitar fuzz, and we're going to kind of do something really new. And so because of that, because we kind of went electric in that one track, I think my brother told us I was like, we're looking for a name for it, and he said you should look at the Dylan Goes Electric records and see if any of those titles jump out to you. And I opened it, and just the first thing I saw was Clean Cut Kid.
Cool.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're saying earlier, you describe your sound as sort of folk. Is that what you class it, or would you sort of say it's folk with like any different element? Would you just say it's out and out folk? Because from listening to your album, I wouldn't really have said it's folk. It's not really contemporary folk in the terms of, say, Thea Gilmore, and it's not really traditional folk in the terms of the Unthanks. It's more kind of indie folk-ish. Would you say that's where you think it would fit, or
the alt folk probably?
It's a crazy one, because it's kind of like it's actually a bit of a soul band. It's a bit soul-y in a way, but but obviously soul's a bit of a odd genre to kind of throw in right now because people associate that with smooth sort of urban soul. When I throw the word soul in there, I'm talking like Otis Redding. I mean, like the absolute roots of like when
Still crunchy
and yeah, and still kind of I don't know, it's soul instantly conjures up smooth with people, but back in the day it was the opposite of smooth. Like soul used to be the most raw genre out there. So I think we're a bit of a like lo-fi kind of, it's like kind of folk soul almost, but I
there's
really
elements of blues as well in some of the tracks, isn't there?
yeah, but again, I kind of hate every bit of blues and soul that's ever been done by anybody white. I absolutely despise. So it's like it's really hard to call myself a white soul blues guy because I just despise that description. Like, so I think the place where the writing comes from is much more of a like a East Coast sort of Greenwich Village folk place, like maybe the band, or like a sort of pseudo Appalachian folk Americana thing. It's so hard. It's so hard.
One thing I noticed from listening to the latest record, that a lot of your music is very upbeat in musically, but then the lyrics are very macabre. Is that like an intentional thing that you've made it sort of catchy and jangly, but actually it's really hard hitting and quite morbid what you're singing about?
That is 100% the theme of the band, really. So it's good that you've gotten that, because the stuff that I love, the stuff that really moved me about all like the history of music was that exact stuff. Like the lyrics are just at like the most cutting and honest they can possibly be, but the arrangement isn't kind of built just to be emotional, if you know what I mean. I think the beat I'm a beat I know it's a huge cliche for Scouts, but I'm absolute Beatles nut, and the Beatles are kind of the Beatles, and I think Brian Wilson, like Beach Boys and Beatles, are the absolute masters of that. You know, where you can listen to so much of the catalog and not even graze over how heavy half of it is, if you know what I mean, until you start digging in. So that was definitely, it's good that you picked up on that, because that was a big brief.
Yeah. So when you're listening to a song, this is a question I often ask a lot of people, like friends and stuff. When you're listening to a song, what's more important, that it has really good, intricate music or really good lyrics? What's the most important element to us when you're like listening to music yourself?
I'd say lyrics 110%, because
because bad lyrics can ruin a song, can't it?
100%, yeah. And I love, like, you know, I love Bob Dylan, I love Leonard Cohen. You know, the big lyricists kind of didn't need to be able to deliver anything vocally, and they also, like, you know, Leonard Cohen, half of his back catalogue, and even like Tom Waits, half of their back catalogue, you know, they completely throw the melody out of the window, if you know what I mean.
The production is like some of those like Leonard Cohen later stuff, just the production was just like MIDI drums, MIDI keys, like shit, but then the lyrics are just so hard hitting and good that they just make up for it. Yeah,
absolutely. I often find I listen to music and I can hear it's really musically complex. There's lots of intricate riffs and there's lots of stuff going on, but you'll listen to the words and they'll just be more or less saying nothing. I'd rather have someone who maybe wasn't the greatest guitarist, maybe it wasn't very complicated, but they were saying something that I can listen to and think, yeah, I get that, I felt that, it makes sense to me. I think that's so important. And that's what I noticed when I was listening to Hiss, that a lot of the words, sort of the stuff you were singing, I could relate to myself, and that's what makes an album for me, is when I can think, oh, that makes sense, I get that, I felt like that, or whatever. I think when you can make an album that like reaches to people in that way, I think that's when you've made a great album.
Yeah, and I think without wanting to get in any kind of rant, that element, the importance of the elements that you've just been talking about, are massively missing from every genre. I mean, straight up through every bit of frontline pop. It's almost like the people that manage to be still making great, incredible music and are just about doing it are the people that just about have enough meaning in there for people to get their teeth into, and then they become these giant kind of like, or like godlike poets, if you know what I mean now. Which I don't agree with either, but like I think I think that's something that's dying out. And also there's a kind of there's a synchronicity between those two things that you talk about, and there's a world where you've got great production and great arrangements, and you've got great lyrics, and some people are amazing at one or the other, and some people are amazing at both. But very few people build the arrangements around the impact of the lyrics. That's the final thing that's really just like 95% of artists it's really missing now.
I think you see it more in smaller bands. I think the bands that haven't got the big cult following have got it down to a T more than the big bands that are in the charts. And I or the ones that are like selling out arenas. I think it's the bands that are maybe playing down the local whatever venue with 200 people. They've got it, whereas the big ones just haven't.
I think you
sounds like Coldplay spring to mind.
Yeah. I think Coldplay definitely had that in Parachutes, because if you listen to songs like Sparks, like every single move is built for the to around the impact of Chris Martin's voice, and he's just whispering these tracks here. But I think what you're saying as well, again, this is definitely I'm declaring this the last thing I'm saying, because I don't want this to be a like there used to be a trend where if you could like artistically take everything you'd ever learned about music and arrangements and you make music, and it would absolutely blow people's heads off, like the way Bowie would have done with like Hunky Dory and those first few records. If you could do that, then you'd be the biggest of the big, and you'd have all the crowd. But there's kind of a with the bigger bands, especially the bands that aren't particularly like radio bands, for example, or just even artists that aren't particularly radio artists. It's almost become the opposite, which I don't know if that's bad or good, but like you can be big if every single person in that stadium thinks, if you gave me that guitar, I could make that music. Like it's so layperson now that it is like, it's definitely, artists have to 110% be the next door neighbor with the guitar, and then the world loves them. And we've really, like, I mean, I've got a tattooed head, I'm completely covered in head to toe with tattoos. We like look like the average kind of pop stars at all, and we don't make music that sounds like that at all. And it's just so weird now. I've noticed that it's like nothing to do with, it's almost nothing to do with genre. It's about we're trying to make music that encompasses everything we've ever learned, because we've all been making music since we were 5 years old, and now we're in our 30s, and that's actually isolating a lot of people, even though it's not muso-y. It's just, that's what happens now.
But you're making the music you like, you're making the music you want to make, rather than the music you think people want to hear. You're not making it because what's charting now is whatever. You're making the music that you love. And I think that when you're making the music you love, that's where it comes through when someone else is listening. When you can tell that people are being true to themselves, I think it really shines. You can tell when they're going through the motions. You can definitely tell when you see a band live and they're just making music because they think that's what people want to hear. You can see it so much that they're just bored. And I think it's really obvious. I don't know why the music industry's gone. I guess they do, it's money, but you've got like, people aren't like Coldplay, as we were just talking about. They started off one thing and now they're more or less a pop band.
I know. It's
just crazy.
You find it in every industry though. Like even if you look at, for instance, I don't know, why does the world love a McDonald's burger over like the most gourmet, most interesting, most wacky, most weird and something that someone's painstakingly like tasted and tried and worked on for years to like create? It's because it's just like the masses kind of in general are going to want something that doesn't challenge them as much, because it's just easier to take in. And
absolutely,
it's also because of like industries, in order to grow past a certain size, always have to cater not just to the lowest common denominator, because I'm not saying that to isolate audiences, because I think the whole world still has the full ability to be able to take in whatever type of art they want and whatever type of culture. That's patronizing to say, but it's less about that and more about the industry. It's the same as architecture. The reason why buildings look the way they do is so people without any architectural or design skills can build buildings now. Like it's the same with music. Music sounds like it does because the industry's been built so people without very much talent can make music. And that doesn't mean you're a terrible songwriter. It's just that what used to happen is people with no musical talent but with a big voice and a big heart, like Lou Reed. I don't want to say he's got no musical talent, but what I mean is like he's not technically, he was never technically proficient on any instruments or whatever. He was never trained, but he's incredible because he just has a unique way of laying the whole world out, and the world used to give people like that a forum to do this. And that's what we're just trying to carve our own little way through it. Like,
I think like both things serve a purpose, because like the Coldplays and the Ed Sheerans and the, you know, whatever, they still serve a purpose, and there always has to be those. And the same with, there always has to be McDonald's. I bloody love McDonald's. I actually don't mind Coldplay. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, but it's just it's very different. It's very different worlds. It's mad to think that bands like that exist in the same industry as like you know, bands that we might be obsessed with that are in some like dive bar in Liverpool. And
I think the way we consume music now has made a massive difference, and the sheer volume of music, because sometimes I'll look at my Spotify and I'll end up listening to something I've listened to 1,000 times before, because I think I don't know what else to listen to. Let's just put on Oasis because it's easy.
It's option paralysis. It definitely is, for sure. And also
so many.
Also, like, music could always be so eclectic and challenging in every way, because the consumer would walk into a record store and there would be a stand that had something being pushed because it was new, and you would take that home and you would give that 40 listens, and you then all of a sudden might be into a whole genre that you would never give the chance to if it was tracking a playlist, if you know what I mean, which means slowly everybody's kind of tolerance for eclectic sounds and productions just disappeared, you know. Anyway, that is complete rant over.
It's not the same now. You don't have to take a handbag full of CDs everywhere with you and a Discman.
No. It's not as cool, but
so is Clean Cut Kid your full-time jobs, or have you got jobs in the real world as well, or is music full-time?
Music's our full-time jobs. We were kind of both like session players before this kicked off. So we played with other people and got hired to make records with people and do all that stuff. So we have a studio here, so I'm kind of 50-50 producing other people's records. And doing my own, and doing Clean Cut Kid. And Ev's got her own thing, Pet Snake, and you also are a session cellist that's hired out to do stuff.
I just try and do like as much as I can, and then I'll do like little gigs, you know, little covers gigs, stuff like that around town. You know, private functions, that kind of thing.
So it's not Clean Cut Kid that's your full-time job, but music is.
We used to be Clean Cut Kid, but it was kind of smoke and mirrors, really, wasn't it? Because it wasn't real, because it was just, we sort of had, you know, enough of an advance from the big label that we were on that it was just kind of, you were able to just do it full time. But that's never really real life anyway, because that ends up having to be like, you know, paid back. But now the way that it's set up is like, it's amazing. Like Mike just basically set up a studio, and we've been able to like own the masters for all the albums for the last 3 records. So it means that like everything that comes in kind of for Clean Cut Kid is kind of
well, I kind of make, because I co-write with a lot of people, and then I make a lot of records here. I sort of make a yearly wage passively without even doing anything really. But then on top of that, I'll try and book in projects that I love doing in the studio. And then also with Clean Cut Kid, it could easily be both of our full-time jobs if we just did 2 or 3 more things that we don't want to do as a band, if you know what I mean. Like I don't do the normal tours, we don't do the normal festivals, we consciously stop doing that. And as a result, the band has artistically kind of flourished, but just, you know, it currently has a bit of a ceiling to its growth, because we're trying to work out a way. You know, there's people that we absolutely love and adore in other markets in Europe and in America that seemingly don't take any of the usual like radio doing the radio tours and doing the stuff. There's a lot of people that we love that don't do the things that we don't want to do. And we're trying to figure that out in the UK now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you're not about to take Hiss out on tour then?
We will. It's more just like doing, I don't know, like, sometimes you get asked to do these support tours that might pay well but be the absolute worst what's the word, like
PR.
Yeah, just the worst like match between bands.
Yeah. It would only take us to kind of be back in Leeds and Reading in one of the tents, kind of jumping up and down, playing a crazy set that we could definitely all play a crazy set, and everyone jumping up and down to like our bigger songs from years ago, for it to be every single thing we've tried to do, positioning ourselves where we are now to just be erased, if you know what I mean. So, and we do get offered. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating to say like 3/4 of the stuff that we get offered I turn down. But
you've got to stay true to yourself, haven't you? You've got to stay true to what you're comfortable with and what you want to do, which I think is really important. It lacks so much now. As soon as a lot of bands, if you do this, then you'll get this or whatever, and then they just start selling themselves out.
It never works like that anyway. And you get, the amount of things we got told, if you do this, then this will happen. If you go here, then this will happen. If you go on tour with this band, then this will happen. And it never, ever, ever, ever works like that. So we just were like, we'll just do the gigs we want to do, the festivals we want to do, link up with the people we want to link up with. And maybe it's a slower, longer route. Maybe it's less fruitful, but it's going to be true to us. And
exactly.
So for example, with Hiss, I decided that the record, because it's so personal, would probably be too painful for me to just like do a full tour of. And secondly, because it's supposed to be one unit all the way through, we didn't want to try and force that on our fan base across the country, but we wanted to trying to do it as one thing. So we just did a special date in Liverpool with the crowd like kind of built round us at the same level, and we did the same thing in a church in London, and we played Hiss all the way through. And we'll probably play songs from Hiss that we think work perfectly in the set going forward, but that's the perfect example. We probably could have done a normal tour and done 20 dates and made a quarter of a year's worth of wages, and then Clean Cut Kid would have been our job for that time. But it's just it's not.
I suppose you have to be careful though. If you say Hiss is quite a painful record for you, you have to be careful if you're going out and doing a 20-date tour, singing those songs every night with that pain from those songs. By the time you finish 20 dates, you think, I never want to hear this record or sing this record again. So you have to be very careful.
Exactly. And it is what it is. It's a personal little record made in the middle of lockdown on tape with kind of me just whispering these things into a mic. It was never, it always was supposed to reach the world, but it was never supposed to be delivered as a live band. This is this.
It almost nearly started out as a solo project, didn't it? Because I said to Mike, I was like, because he was like, I'm gonna write the next record and I'm just gonna lock myself away and just like do all this stuff. And I was like, well, just consider it as a solo project if you need to, if you don't want to try and fit it into the world of Clean Cut Kid kind of thing. And he did play like everything on it as well, like all the instruments pretty much.
Yeah, except drums. I actually made the record by myself and played all the drums as well. And then I got the drummer in and made it a second time with the drummer playing drums just to kind of have him on it because he's brilliant. So, yeah.
Wow. So you're both multi-instrumentalists, are you? You can both play lots of instruments.
We can both pretty much play everything.
Mike's
between
better.
No.
Play more.
Ed's like
are you both from musical families?
Sort of. Yeah, not like the traditional that you'd think though. Like
no pros, no professional.
No. Like I mean, all our parents can sing really well. If like a song starts and they'll sing, and my mum used to do a bit of singing and stuff like when she was younger, but none of our family are like the classic get the instruments out musicians. We're the ones that everyone says, oh, they're the creative ones in the family, kind of like sort of thing. Yeah. Except your brother's an amazing artist as well.
Yeah, it's kind of at Liverpool. It's hard to if you throw a stone over the back garden, you're going to hit somebody that can play guitar.
That's true.
But it's just being we're both uniquely completely and utterly obsessed since the very first. You know, I have stories from being 6 months old and kind of flying across the room in my stroller. I had to put my ear next to the TV when like the theme tunes were on. Like we were just,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like we uniquely just, you know, and we play with loads and loads of people who love music in every way, and
Yeah.
and it's their whole lives. But it's kind of
Yeah.
strange that we're together and we've both had this
Yeah.
just absolute, you know,
You're lucky.
dead.
I see. I love music, but I was blessed with absolutely no rhythm at all.
Oh,
Right.
oh wow.
Oh, well, so part of me wishes that I couldn't see behind the veil and I could just enjoy music like I used to, you know, before I got trained. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I suppose you must find if you are very musical that when you listen to music yourself, you're not just like I listen to it very much based on feelings and whether it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. You must also be looking at it from a technical point of view, from how the song's constructed, or can you kind of separate that when you're listening and consuming music yourself?
I completely separate. If anything, if something's really not put together well, like you're saying, and has more of the lyrics and then how that reflects on the music don't aren't put together well, I just won't. I'm just not into that music. I
Yeah.
won't. But the
Yeah.
music that I listen to blows my head off
Yeah.
as much as the very first thing I ever heard. You know, music's still the only thing that'll just have me like crying at 1 o'clock in the day. Do you know what I mean? Nothing else kind of moves me at all like that.
Yeah.
And the technical stuff, you know, it means absolutely nothing to me. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it can annoy me if like a lyric's a bit clunky or if it's got a like production that I'm not massively into and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if it's still delivered in like a really authentic and heartfelt way,
Yeah.
and if I can sort of get past the clunkiness and think, oh well, actually that's not clunkiness, that's naivety, and that's actually quite sweet that's
Yeah.
not been overthought, then
Yeah.
then I can get past it. But yeah, it's hard not to, especially I think especially when you go see people live, it's really hard not to
Yeah, that's
like,
hard. Yeah.
just because you know how it feels being up there. So if you can see someone slightly feeling a bit off and not loving
Mhm.
it, or like is, you know, you can feel, you almost feel those nerves, and that can make
Yeah.
you feel really uncomfortable. Or
Yeah.
if you know that, oh, they're not playing that live, that's just like loads of track, or that can be a bit off-putting. And sometimes I wish that we didn't know all those things, or know, you know, if someone's like looking over to like the left and trying to like get someone's attention, you're like, oh, their like monitors aren't right and whatever, and you just I
Yeah.
don't know, you just know all the little ins and outs. But
I think
yeah.
vanity is the death of like authenticity in art. You know what I mean? And so like we are. I mean, I am deathly allergic to it, and I'm super vain as a guy, as a person, but like
You're
mute.
not.
I'm vain enough, you know what I mean?
He's not.
I'd like to be less
He's
vain than
not.
I'd like to be less.
I've whipped it out of
You've
you,
whiffed
haven't
it
I?
out with out of it, but
Took all the mirrors down in the house.
yeah, but with music, you know, if there's the slightest hint of I made this and I wrote, which is, again, I don't want to rant here, but 99.9% of even the people that are really good, naming no names, but there's bands that I absolutely love that are even based here in the UK, which is rare because I don't love much UK based music right now. But there's bands that I love, and the one thing I just can't come to terms with, like, is I can hear the vanity in it. I can hear I've just written this, and I'm
Yeah.
so proud to get it out there. And the only reason why I'm delivering it to you in this way is because it's going to blow your heads off.
Mhm.
I can't hear music that I know is being written for an audience in any way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Something I don't like, I don't know if you've come across it, but is bands that try too hard to be too political. There's a band called The Struts, and I saw them play in the summer, and they were very much out and out, just so over the top, so contrived, and it really, I just think you're losing your message because you're trying to deliver it too hard.
Yeah.
Also, go down that route if you have something to say, or if you have you know, something that's not going to be just the same thing that someone said before. If you've got either a unique perspective, or you've got an own personal experience, or you feel like I've got so much knowledge on this and I've done so much work to know the history on this, that I'm gonna I'm gonna deliver this with like so much like authenticity, and also I'm gonna know if anyone wants to discuss it or debate it, I'm gonna be able to hold my own. The worst is when like you hear someone trying to give a message in a song, and then when they're quizzed on it, they're just kind of a bit like, well, you know, I just thought this and this, that. And it's just so like surface level, and you just think, wow, you've just used that situation and that subject for your own benefit. And that's the opposite of writing and performing a political song. It's the opposite. You should be doing that for someone else's benefit as an activist.
And there's a lot of bands like that now.
I know.
There is,
I know, it's frustrating. That's why I don't veer into it when I'm writing. I hardly ever veer into subjects that I, you know, if I do feel myself veering into a subject that I don't feel like qualified to talk about yet, then I just kind of shelve it and go, maybe that's for another time when I have more to say on that, that's going to either help people or just be more eloquent, because it's not.
I've actually found that like I've gotten so personal with my writing now that like I'm actually like, there's verses that are full of people's names and full of such specific things that have only happened to me and only relevant to not even Ev. Like they're just so specific to me. And the more I've done that, the more universally every single one of the fan bases being like, oh my gosh, we associate with it. Whereas back in the day, we were almost being pressured to try and make the appeal as wide as it could possibly be with lyrics. And it didn't hit anybody, you know, it didn't, you know, it was like, so it's a bit of an oxymoron there. The best artists of all time in every medium, not just music, you know, they've just made art for. I make music because I feel like it doesn't exist. Like I make a song because I'm like, oh, I'd love if a song musically did this and had these chords and then had this message in the middle of it, and no one's ever done or said it like that. I just make something to hear that doesn't exist. I'm fucking sick of it by the time it's. I'm so sick of it by the time it's in existence that I don't listen to it myself, but at least I create something that I think like, if I had the gap there, then it must be a gap, if you know what I mean. So yeah, sorry, talking about shit.
We've got 5 minutes left, I guess. We'll wrap it up. What does the future hold for Clean Cut Kid?
Well, I'm halfway. I've made another record since this, which is being mastered now, and that's an instrumental record. So that's a bit of a different vibe, made in with in collaboration with our incredibly talented keys player mate Tom Ashbrook. And then I'm halfway through
the next record,
writing the record after that, so 2 records after his. And we have new management, and so we have a lot.
Next year will be music out, touring.
It'll be a lot more of the standard. It'll look a lot more like the standard. We have a single out, then we do a tour. We have and then, but hopefully it'll still be within the boundaries that we deem like is right for the band. But a lot, by far the most busy year you'll have seen since like probably 2016 for Clean Cut Kid.
But also it's going in the right direction. Like it's all the music we're making and the stuff we're putting out in the videos and the aesthetic of the artwork and what we're saying, I guess, even in interviews like this, like it all feels right. It all just feels right. So more of.
And you.
And I thought it was shaking my hand there.
No,
he's saying me. I've got a project that I'm doing now as well. Like a solo thing called Pet Snake. I say solo, it is me, but also the live band is just the members of Clean Cut Kid, and then it's also just produced by Mike. So it's all.
But I don't write it, and also I don't really produce. It's like it's so much a co-production.
It doesn't really sound like Clean Cut Kid, no. But
people love it.
Yeah, it's cool. I've put like 2 singles out, so that's just also just going to be like going alongside Clean Cut Kid next year. That'll be cool.
Yeah,
cool. Well, thank you for talking to me.
Oh, thank you.
We think you were great.
Yeah, you were great.
You were brilliant.
You've done great now, so you're basically a pro.
Cheers. Thank you.